security footage revealed a shocking scene as a young girl was being attacked by a massive dog. But the biggest surprise of all was the person who ordered the dog to attack her. Stick around with us to find out who it was. In the picturesque town of Montverde, Florida, a horrifying tragedy has sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community, leaving residents grappling with disbelief and sorrow. The life of 9-year-old Jamaria Sessions, a vibrant and innocent child, was cut short in a brutal and senseless act of violence that has left many questioning how such a devastating event could have unfolded in their midst. The story began to unravel on the evening of June 17th, when a frantic 911 call alerted authorities to a disturbing scene at a home on Harbor Oaks Drive. Emergency responders arrived to find Jamaria unresponsive, her small body marked by visible signs of severe trauma. Despite their efforts to revive her, it quickly became apparent that the injuries were too severe, and the young girl was pronounced dead at the scene. What investigators uncovered in the following days would reveal a pattern of abuse and neglect that had tragically culminated in the child's untimely death. As the investigation progressed, attention quickly turned to 34-year-old Taisha Elise Martin, the girlfriend of Jamaria's father, Lojuan Sessions. Martin, who had been living with the family, was arrested on charges of first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse, and child neglect. The details of the case are as shocking as they are heartbreaking, with evidence pointing to a sustained period of cruelty inflicted upon Jamaria by Martin. The key to unraveling the mystery lay in the family's security camera footage, which had captured the horrifying events of June 15th, 2 days before Jamaria was found unresponsive. In the chilling footage, Martin can be seen holding the leash of a 103-pound Rottweiler, directing the dog to attack the defenseless child. The footage shows the dog viciously mauling Jamaria, who desperately tried to escape the onslaught. As the dog continued its brutal attack, Martin's actions only grew more sinister. She is seen repeatedly kicking Jamaria as she lay motionless on the floor, her tiny body unable to withstand the repeated blows. But the horror didn't end there. The footage also reveals Martin dragging Jamaria's unconscious body across the floor, shaking her violently and striking her again and again. In one particularly chilling moment, Martin is heard muttering, "I'm fixin' to kill her," as she continued her relentless assault on the helpless child. For those who later reviewed the footage, the sheer brutality of the attack was almost too much to bear. The images and sounds captured on the security cameras painted a harrowing picture of a child subjected to unimaginable violence at the hands of someone who should have been caring for her. The autopsy report would later confirm the worst fears of the investigators. Jamaria had died from complications due to multiple blunt force injuries to her head, torso, and extremities. In addition to the severe trauma, the autopsy revealed a heat-related injury to her right foot, further evidence of the suffering she endured in her final moments. The injuries were consistent with prolonged physical abuse, suggesting that the events of June 15th were not an isolated incident, but rather the culmination of a sustained pattern of violence. As the investigation delved deeper, a disturbing pattern of abuse emerged. Interviews with family members and acquaintances, as well as the discovery of text messages, painted a picture of a child who had been subjected to cruel and unusual punishments on a regular basis. Martin's methods of discipline were as sadistic as they were inhumane. Jamaria was often forced to perform strenuous physical tasks, such as extended wall sits and running in place with her arms raised for long periods. These punishments were frequently accompanied by physical violence, with Martin hitting, kicking, and punching the child whenever she failed to meet her demands. The discovery of this sustained abuse has left the Montverde community grappling with a profound sense of grief and outrage. Residents have been left wondering how such a heinous act of violence could have taken place in their peaceful town. The arrest of Martin has provided some measure of justice, but it has also sparked difficult conversations about the signs of abuse that may have gone unnoticed and the responsibility of the community to protect its most vulnerable members. The case has also drawn attention to the complex and tragic circumstances that led to Jamaria and her younger sister being placed in the care of their father and Martin. After the death of their mother from leukemia at the young age of 24, The girls had initially been living with their grandmother. However, in October 2023, following the release of their father, Lo Juan Sessions, from prison, the girls were moved to live with him and Martin. Despite their best efforts to remain involved in the girls' lives, the maternal side of the family found themselves increasingly cut off, facing what they described as insurmountable barriers in their attempts to provide love and support to Jamaria and her sister. The situation was further complicated by Lo Juan Sessions' criminal history, which included a 5-year prison sentence for charges of child neglect, trafficking in MDMA, and fleeing and eluding law enforcement. Released in August 2023, Sessions had only been out of prison for a few months before the tragedy struck. The family had hoped that despite his troubled past, Sessions would be able to provide a stable and nurturing environment for his daughters. Tragically, those hopes were shattered as the full extent of the abuse inflicted upon Jamaria came to light. In the wake of Jamaria's death, her maternal family has been left to grapple with the overwhelming grief and loss. They have set up a fundraiser to help cover the costs of her funeral, describing Jamaria as a bright and beautiful 9-year-old girl whose life was filled with promise.
Of a 9-year-old baby? 9.
The family has also expressed their deep sorrow for Jamaria's younger sister, who now faces an uncertain future without her beloved sibling by her side.
And her sister, what happened to her sister? She's not going to understand that. She's only 6 years old.
The story of Jamaria Sessions has sparked widespread outrage and calls for justice, not just within the Monteverde community, but across the nation. The brutal nature of the crime, combined with the evidence of prolonged abuse, has led many to question how such violence could have gone unnoticed for so long. Why did no one intervene? How could this have been allowed to happen? These questions have ignited a broader conversation about the need for more effective child protection measures and the importance of vigilance in identifying and responding to signs of abuse. As the legal proceedings against Martin move forward, the community will be watching closely, hoping that justice will be served for Jamaria and her sister. The case has also highlighted the critical role that communities, law enforcement, and child protection agencies must play in safeguarding vulnerable children from harm. For Jamaria's family, the pain of her loss is immeasurable. In their fundraiser, they spoke of the deep love they had for her and the unbearable grief they now carry. Despite our efforts to be a part of their lives and provide them with the love and support they need, we have been met with insurmountable barriers, they wrote, expressing their frustration and sorrow over the circumstances that led to this unimaginable tragedy. The story of Jamaria Sessions is a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the devastating consequences of unchecked violence. It is a call to action for communities, law enforcement, and child protection agencies to work together to ensure that no child has to endure the kind of suffering that Jamaria experienced in her short life. As the days pass and the legal process continues, Jamaria's story will continue to serve as a painful reminder of the work that remains to be done to protect children from abuse. The community mourns the loss of a young life taken far too soon, and the world is left to grapple with the haunting questions of how and why this tragedy was allowed to happen. In the end, the legacy of Jamaria Sessions must be one of change. Her death should compel us all to be more vigilant, to speak up when we see signs of abuse, and to ensure that no child is ever left to suffer in silence. The tragedy of her short life must not be in vain, but rather a catalyst for a collective commitment to protecting the most vulnerable among us.